When a lifelong friendship is tested by insecurities and heartbreak, can love and loyalty withstand the turmoil? Join me on my emotional journey as I navigate a wedding, betrayal, and self-discovery. A heartbreaking decision. I never thought I'd find myself in such a painful situation, especially with someone I considered a sister. Sophie and I had been friends since we were 4 years old. Our families were intertwined and our bond felt unbreakable. So when Sophie asked me to be her maid of honor for her wedding, I was over the moon. I poured my heart into planning her bachelorette party and supporting her every step of the way. But then, everything changed. Just 2 weeks ago, we had a fun day trying on bridesmaid dresses. I thought it went wonderfully. Everyone seemed happy, and I was excited to stand by Sophie on her big day. However, a couple of days later, I received a message from her asking to meet up. My gut sank, and I could sense that something was off. When we sat down, Sophie dropped the bombshell. She wanted me to step down as maid of honor. My heart shattered in that coffee shop. She explained that she felt insecure about how I looked in the bridesmaid dress, fearing that I would overshadow her on her special day. I was devastated. I never wanted anyone to compare us. I just wanted to be there for her, supporting her on one of the biggest days of her life. I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes as I tried to process what she was saying. I agreed to step down, but told her I wouldn't attend the wedding. If my presence was going to be a burden, I wouldn't impose. She quickly insisted that wasn't what she wanted, claiming she still wanted me there, but just wanted the focus to be on her. I stood my ground, feeling a mix of hurt and anger. I couldn't believe she was putting conditions on our friendship and on her wedding. I mean, was it really fair for her to ask me to lie to everyone about why I wouldn't be there? As the conversation progressed, I felt my emotions boiling over. I wanted to scream, to tell her she was being ridiculous. After all, I had been a good friend and hadn't done anything wrong. But I couldn't just walk away from our friendship without thinking it through. The weight of her request hung heavily in my heart, and I left that meeting feeling lost. Part 2. Conflicted thoughts. Once home, the turmoil of emotions consumed me. I turned to my boyfriend, who was equally horrified by what Sophie had said. He asked me point blank if I was really going to let her dictate my feelings. I explained everything, detailing the hurt and confusion that had taken root in me. He suggested that if I didn't want to go, I shouldn't. But here's the catch. He was still planning to attend since he was friends with the groom. I felt like I was caught in this web of conflicting loyalties. Meanwhile, my parents weighed in on the situation too. My mom, always the voice of reason, argued that Sophie's insecurities were evident and perhaps she deserved to feel like the princess on her wedding day. My stepdad added that sometimes you have to let people be irrational, even if it seems unfair. But how could I stand by and allow myself to be treated this way? I felt torn between my long-standing friendship and the self-respect I was trying to reclaim. It became clear that I had to make a decision, and fast. I spent hours contemplating what was right and what was fair. On one hand, I had invested so much into her wedding. I had paid for the bachelorette party, the bridesmaid dress, and even contributed to her wedding jewelry. On the other hand, I felt used and hurt. The realization that she had held on to these insecurities made me question everything about our friendship. I sat down and began to write out my thoughts, trying to make sense of the chaos swirling in my mind. Was it petty to refuse to go to the wedding? I couldn't shake the feeling that Sophie had crossed a line. As I contemplated my next steps, I couldn't help but wonder if I was being too harsh or if this was truly the end of our friendship. Part 3. The unraveling. Days turned into a week, and the wedding day loomed closer. My emotions were a roller coaster, swinging from anger to sadness and back again. I felt like I was losing a piece of my childhood, a friendship that had lasted for almost 2 decades. Part of me wanted to reach out to Sophie, to confront her and demand an explanation for her hurtful behavior. But another part of me worried that it would only lead to more pain. Then, one evening, my boyfriend and I sat down to talk more about the situation. He had done some digging, and it turned out that Sophie's insecurities ran deeper than I realized. Apparently, during a night out, the groom had made a comment about how I was perfect and how my boyfriend should propose to me soon. This comment had hit Sophie like a ton of bricks, especially since she had been waiting for her own proposal for years. Furthermore, my mom had her own insights. She mentioned that Sophie's mother had made a comment about my appearance during the dress fitting, suggesting that Sophie should have chosen a dress that wouldn't draw attention away from her. It was all starting to make sense, but it didn't make the pain any easier to bear. I found myself grappling with the realization that Sophie's feelings of inadequacy were not my fault. Yet she had chosen to take those feelings out on me instead of addressing them with the people who had hurt her. My heart ached for her, but I couldn't ignore the fact that I was the one who had been hurt. As the wedding approached, I had to make a decision. Should I confront Sophie now that I had some answers, or should I let the matter rest? I contemplated my options while standing in front of the mirror, the reflection staring back at me, a mix of confusion and resolve. Part 4. The wedding day approaches. The day of the wedding arrived, and I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me. I had made the decision to attend, not as a maid of honor, but simply as a guest. My boyfriend was by my side, and I wanted to support him, but I also needed closure for myself. As I got ready, I tried to push aside the feelings of discomfort that bubbled within me. I wanted to enjoy the day and celebrate the union of two people, but the shadow of my fractured friendship loomed large. Upon arriving at the venue, I was greeted by the familiar faces of our mutual friends. Each smile felt like a reminder of what I had lost, and I couldn't shake the feeling of sadness. I took a deep breath and reminded myself that I was there for my boyfriend and not to dwell on what had happened between Sophie and me. I reminded myself that this was her day, and I would try to stay positive. As the ceremony began, I felt a swell of emotions. Watching Sophie walk down the aisle in her stunning gown, I couldn't help but feel a mix of happiness and heartbreak. This was a moment I had envisioned being a part of, but instead I was sitting on the sidelines. I clapped and cheered along with everyone else, but inside I felt an emptiness that echoed through my heart. After the ceremony, I found myself surrounded by friends, sharing laughter and drinks to mask the pain. But when Sophie approached me, my heart raced. She seemed eager to talk, but I wasn't ready to open that door. I simply smiled and wished her well, keeping the conversation light and superficial. I wanted to avoid any confrontation or awkwardness. I was there to support her after all. As the night went on, I watched Sophie surrounded by her loved ones, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of loss. This was a friendship that had meant the world to me, and now it felt shattered. I knew I had to address it eventually, but for now, I wanted to enjoy the moment. Yet, a part of me wondered if I would ever be able to return to the closeness we once shared. Part 5. The Aftermath. As the wedding festivities continued, I felt a bittersweet sense of relief wash over me. I was proud of myself for attending despite everything that had happened. I focused on enjoying the celebration, dancing with friends, and even sharing a few laughs with my boyfriend. But the underlying tension was still present. Eventually, I found a moment alone to reflect on everything that had transpired. I realized that I had changed. My perspective on our friendship felt different, almost as if I was viewing it through a new lens. I had spent so many years supporting Sophie, but now I was confronted with the reality that I couldn't continue allowing her insecurities to dictate my worth in our friendship. As the night progressed, I noticed Sophie trying to reach out again, perhaps attempting to mend things between us. But I felt numb. It was as if I had emotionally detached myself from the situation to protect my heart. I didn't want to hold on to resentment, but I also didn't want to go back to how things were. After the wedding, I decided to take a step back from our friendship. I needed space to process everything I had learned about her insecurities and my own feelings. I resolved to address the situation with our mutual friends when the time felt right, but I wasn't ready to confront Sophie just yet. Part 6. Moving forward. In the weeks that followed, I navigated the aftermath of the wedding. I received messages from Sophie, who seemed eager to discuss what had happened, but I found myself hesitant. I didn't want to delve back into a friendship that had caused me so much pain. Instead, I took a step back and focused on my own well-being. Eventually, I shared the story with a few close friends, explaining why I had distanced myself from Sophie. I didn't want to stir up drama, but I felt it was important for them to understand my feelings. Their support was overwhelming, and I felt a sense of relief in being honest about my experience. As I moved forward, I realized that sometimes friendships evolve, and that's okay. I wished Sophie well, but knew that I couldn't go back to how things were. I hoped she would find happiness and resolve her insecurities in her own way. I had learned a valuable lesson about self-respect and prioritizing my mental health. In the end, I was grateful for the closure I found at the wedding, even if it meant letting go of someone I once considered a sister. Life moves on, and while it hurt to lose a friend, I knew that I had to prioritize my own happiness and well-being. I was ready to embrace new beginnings and the possibilities that lay ahead.